Gurmaigad Echan Corlia. Agus Nye Hor and Priwa of Extadrif Ni Smodrosh Giller Foil, the Ebrini is the highly to $80 and Jimmy, Tihiakte, Agus te Pricene, Nesh Tihiakte, Ni Sergeant Avishan, Lilin Am and Tiger Kelcha. Sample Ele Echan Corlia than Chip that are flan, Tihiakte and Realtas, Agus Ni Hockey Jerry, Lishan Gearkim Tihiakte Shaw, Gadigame Erha policy on Agus Erha Realtas on Mahurumse. Taoiseach, yesterday the CSO published a report on property prices, and it contains more bad news for workers and for families looking to buy a home, with many of them desperate now for somewhere to call a home that is affordable. Today we've reached a new milestone, Taoiseach. House prices are now higher than they were during the Celtic Tiger era. Spiralling house prices confirm that your government's housing plan is failing. Home ownership, the dream of many Irish families, is in decline, all on your watch. And the consequence of all this is that too many people are forced into an expensive and insecure private rental sector that doesn't meet their needs. And it's a vicious spiral, Taoiseach. The only way that this housing crisis is going to be brought to an end is with a general election, a change of government, and a change of housing plan. Because all of the evidence, all of it shows that your policies are making things worse. Your affordable housing targets are pathetically low, and even these low targets are not being met, Taoiseach. In fact, the fact is, Taoiseach, and do you agree with this, that the government had failed to meet its affordable housing targets every year, in 2020, in 21, in 22, and it seems that the Minister for Housing is so embarrassed by his own failures in terms of affordable housing that he is refusing to publish the number of affordable homes that were delivered last year. We still don't have them. And it is the fact that many of these homes that are being delivered are not affordable in the first instance for most workers and families. So let us not pretend that affordable homes with all-in costs of €435,000 in parts of Dublin are somehow affordable for ordinary workers and families, because they're simply not. It is time for a change of direction, Taoiseach. And what we need is a plan that meets the scale of the challenge we face. And Sinn Féin has that plan. Capacity, pace, affordability are key, but also political willingness, political priority is also a key. And in our engagement with builders, with approved housing bodies, with other players in the market, they're all saying the same thing, that there is capacity to do more with proper state support. So, if it is not the #1 government of priority, then the housing crisis is going to continue as it has done every single year under your term. 4 years now since the general election, Taoiseach. 4 years now. Is it not fair to say that when we measure your government's performance against house prices, against rents, against homelessness, against home ownership, that you've not just failed, that you've failed spectacularly? We have an entire generation, the length and breadth of this state, who are locked out of home ownership and who are losing all hope in the future of a future in this country. And that's the reality. I'm sure you've met them as much as I've met them. They're leaving in their droves to London and Canada, to the US, and many of them going now to Australia. So, Taoiseach, can I ask you to honestly answer these questions? Do you accept that you missed your affordable housing targets every year since you entered government? Because it's a fact. Do you accept that? Do you accept that runaway house prices, even surpassing the Celtic Tiger era, are locking entire generations out of home ownership? And do you accept that it is now time for a plan that delivers affordable housing at scale and where homes are genuinely affordable for ordinary workers and families, something that your government has failed to produce up until now?
Well, dus bar ní ein tíim échelechen an tachtadalm an hachtamars ní le áras ach bhfuil dulcha cín le feiskint ó heh cuasaí tíochtas sa tíir seir. Gan áras is seo an aibas mó atá going fi láthir sa tír. Agus an aibas mó atá ag an rialtas ná, níos mó tithe a thógáil agus a crathú, níos mó cabhair agus takeíocht a chóirt a gcuine a bhfuil ag iireacht an chéad teach a cheannach. Agus tána figúraí ann a léirín go bhfuil annacuid céimeanna, annacuid áisne ann inis chun cáir agus takeíocht a chóirt. I disagree entirely with your presentation, Deputy. And in the first instance, I know your complete absence of any reference to social housing at all. And I understand politically why you're doing that, of course, because you're approximating to the centre because you don't really want change, or you're not radically approaching the issue at all. And the reason I say that is, of course, you didn't want to highlight that between 22 and 23, up to 22,000 social houses have been delivered by this government, which is a record high. And there's about 26,000 more social homes in the pipeline. On the affordable, you talk about change. Your change would be a change for the worse. And why do I say that, through the chair? Because you've proposed in your alternative Sinn Féin budget, and you published it, you proposed the abolition of the Help to Buy scheme, which has supported over 40,000 home buyers. So you would get rid of that support for affordability to enable young people to be able to afford to buy their first home. You would scrap the First Home scheme, which gives up to 30% in equity share in new properties, which would enable people to be able to buy their homes. So the state would take up to 30%. 2,600 approvals already under that scheme in just over 1 year. But you would scrap that again. And you would eliminate the new vacant and derelict property grants of 70,000, with over 4,500 applications in now already, and 200 approvals to date. And you would scrap very significant supports in terms of affordable housing in your budget, of up to 260 million worth. That is what you have proposed. And the issue is, you don't have a plan. You have a few pages stitched together, as in your Sinn Féin housing policy budget, which we have read. So you would scrap support for home ownership. You'd increase taxes on inheriting the family home by a substantial, close to 36,000 on the average family home. You would actually scrap it. And you would also then, as I say, abolish the key schemes that give real support to young people who want to buy their first homes. And 550 first-time buyers each week are now buying their first home. Mortgage drawdowns by first-time buyers has reached a new peak, about 26,000 in 2023. That's the highest annual level since 2007, which you did not acknowledge. And we've expanded the Help to Buy scheme. And we want to do more. And we have to do more, given the population increase and the scale of the challenges out there. But we have substance in our planning. We're not opposing projects like Oscar Traynor, which you did, or Ballymastone, or other big projects that would have delivered social and affordable housing much faster if it wasn't for all the prevarication that you people engaged in on the councils, particularly in Dublin in particular. But you have just sound bites, Deputy. You're about 4 or 5 pages. That's all you have of a plan. And you keep talking about change. It's a great sound bite. It's the oldest sound bite in elections. Vote for change. But I would warn people not to vote for the abolition of the Help to Buy scheme. Don't vote for the abolition of the vacant house grant or the derelict house grant. Don't vote for the abolition of the First Home scheme. Don't vote for abolishing key supports for first-time buyers in this country who want to own their own home.
There is one thing that's clear from you. We'll get no change from you. Because in fairness, you're consistent. Because the last time you were in government, Deputy Martin, you drove house prices off a cliff. But now you're in for the last 4 years, and now you've even surpassed Celtic Tiger periods. You talk about soundbites. It's not a soundbite to say that house prices are running away. It's not a soundbite for the 21,000 people who packed their bags and decided to go to Australia because they feel that they have no hope in this country anymore. It's not a soundbite to point out the reality that an entire generation is locked out of home ownership. It is not a soundbite to point out the facts that in all of the measurements, runaway house prices, rents never as high, homelessness and child homelessness never as high as the history of the state, and home ownership declining. That is the result of your policies. Now, you may go into conclave and pat yourselves on the back and think you are doing a great job. You are not. There is a housing disaster in this country. A housing disaster under your watch. And what people cannot afford, is more Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil policy that pushes up house prices and that fails to deliver on their own plans of delivering affordable housing. I note that you didn't answer one of my questions. Do you accept that you missed the targets every single year that you've been in government? Do you accept that runaway house prices is locking out an entire generation? And do you accept that you need a new plan? Because we can't afford for prices to continue to go up this way. We can't afford for rents to continue to spiral. We can't afford for more children to be in emergency accommodation. And we can't afford for house ownership to decline as it is under your watch.
And where the hell is your plan? You've produced nothing in 4 years. 3 pages in a 52-page budget document. 3 pages on housing. Where is your plan, Deputy? You're all sound, noise and fury, and you have no substance on any of this. 33,000 houses were built last year. 33,000, which is in excess of the target set in Housing for All. Last year, in 2022, the 29,500 in excess of the target that was set in Housing for All. The targets are being exceeded. But Deputy, you have a responsibility. We understand that housing is the biggest issue facing the families across this country. We have never hidden that reality. Our population is increasing. There are challenges out there. But the supports we brought in place are enabling young people to buy the houses in this country at levels that they haven't been able to do before. Do we want to do more? Of course we do. But please, I beg you, Deputy, and you haven't responded to the assertions that I have made. There is no plan to help young people. What your plan is, your plan through the Chair, is to abolish supports to first-time buyers and undermine their capacity to afford new houses. That is the essence of your 3-pager in your 52-page budget. You're all sound, pure bluster and no substance.
Please, this has become an irregular routine on a Thursday. Can we just behave in a slightly orderly way, please?